From the OUTV Broadcast Center in Los Angeles, California, this is Brief News Brief, a brief look at today's trending news topics, proudly combating the thought police since 2016. Here's your host, James Heaney.
I'm James Heaney, and this is your Brief News Briefing. And we've got great news to start for anybody that's thought it's been too difficult to fit Brief News Brief into their schedule. It's now available in podcast form. You can go to Sticher, search Brief News Brief, and subscribe to it. You can't not fit in an audio podcast, right? That's super simple. So on to today's news. On Monday, stock market started off its worst first day of the second quarter since the Great Depression. The Trump bump is becoming the Trump slump. The technology bubble continues to create insecurities, and we've been reporting on that all year long. The elephant in the room now is the trade war with China. It's beginning to ramp up. But is it a trade war officially? Well, no, not yet. But it certainly could evolve into one. China's government said on Sunday that it would immediately impose tariffs on 128 U.S. commodities that it imports. This is, of course, retaliation for President Trump's tariffs on the steel and aluminum. 25% tariffs were added to steel imports and 10% on aluminum imports. The NASDAQ is close to losing all of its gains for 2018. Monday's decline left stocks down more than 4% so far in 2018. They are now down more than 10% when it was at its peak in January. That means the market has entered a so-called correction. At first, the prospect of Republicans controlling the White House and both of the houses of Congress thrilled investors. They anticipated a regulatory wave of rollbacks and slashing corporate and personal taxes. And then when Trump passed it, everyone climaxed. And now that we're getting $5 extra in our pocket, we have rolled over and gone back to sleep. As part of a nationwide crackdown on the illegal use and distribution of opioids and other prescription medications, the Justice Department just announced Monday that the DEA has arrested 28 drug prescribers and pharmacists and revoked the licenses of 147 people who handle controlled substances. This is part of an order by the Attorney General to review 80 million drug transactions, which led to a 45-day enforcement surge, and the surge is expected to continue, targeting places across America where opioid crisis is at its worst. It did not appear that the effort targeted any of the drug distributors or manufacturers that have been blamed for allowing hundreds of millions of opioid painkillers to pour out of the legitimate supply chains into the black market over the past 15 years. The opioid epidemic nearly killed 64,000 people in 2016. Meanwhile, widespread medical marijuana use appears to have had put a dent in the abuse epidemic of opioids. According to 2 studies published Monday, the research suggests that some people turn to marijuana as a way to treat their pain, and by doing so, avoid using more dangerous addictive drugs. The findings are the latest to lend support to the idea that some people are willing to substitute marijuana for opioids and other prescription drugs. States that allowed homegrown marijuana for medical use saw an estimated 1.8 million fewer pills dispensed per day. Over the weekend, videos surfaced showing dozens of local newscasters across the country using a provided script to express criticism about the news industry itself. Classy. The newscasters said that they were, and I'm quoting here, concerned about the troubling trend of irresponsible one-sided news stories plaguing our country. Well, newsflash, we're concerned about the largest owner of local news organizations sending scripts to all of their local newscasters to read to their viewers verbatim. That just worries us a little bit too. It's basically a giant editorial in surround sound, or excuse my language, a bukkake of propaganda. The statements were part of a promotion that stations whom were owned by Sinclair Broadcasting Group were required to deliver. Yet President Trump came out as a huge fan of this script being read out loud over local newscasts. So funny to watch fake news networks, among the most dishonest group of people I have ever dealt with, criticize Sinclair Broadcasting for being biased. Sinclair is far superior to CNN, even more fake NBC, which is a total joke. Part of the reason Sinclair has gotten so large is that the FCC is under the Trump administration's control right now, and it's been relaxing or eliminating a number of rules for broadcasters, including one that limits how many local news stations a single company can own. Well, that's interesting that Sinclair's got so many stations. This puts Sinclair in the same game as the juggernaut cable networks like Fox News, CNN's Turner Broadcasting System, the big ones. They're playing with the big boys now. Sinclair owns or operates 59 Fox affiliates, 41 ABC affiliates, 30 CBS affiliates, 25 NBC affiliates, 9 Univision affiliates, and others that are it's just smaller numbers, so we can't read them all out. And it also has its own network, Comet. There is currently a proposed merger of the Tribune Media and Sinclair, and if it goes through, Sinclair will deliver how news is delivered to 70% of American households. Opponents of the deal continue to worry that it would decrease both competition in local media and diversity in perspectives that are broadcast. We are just concerned here that the Trump administration is going to continue to send Sinclair affiliates pro-Trump scripts to read. I would think it's a no-brainer. Can we not stop him? I mean, that's propaganda, Bakaki. Yesterday, the Trump administration launched an effort to weaken Obama-era fuel economy standards for vehicles. They also demanded that California fall in line. The fuel efficiency standard set up in 2012 would have required automakers to nearly double the fuel economy of new cars and trucks to 54.5 miles a gallon by 2025. But never mind, you don't need to do that anymore. Take a load off, automobile manufacturers. Sorry, planet Earth, you're just gonna have to cope. Scott Pruitt, the head of the EPA, took aim at a federal waiver granted to California that allowed it and 12 other states to follow a more stringent set of pollution rules. This is not, he's saying basically this is not a confederacy, you fools. This is Trump's country. This is Trump's rules. Get ready to get dirty, California. Well, California is fighting back. Cali was joined on Monday by a coalition of at least 7 state attorney generals, including Eric Schneiderman of New York, as well as more than 30 mayors, who said that they would vigorously resist any effort by the Trump administration to prevent states and cities from enforcing emission standards, to which automakers responded with, "But Dad said I could make dirty cars." Fallout could pose a logistical challenge for automakers requiring substantially different car designs with different fuel efficiencies for different parts of the country, sending American auto industries into uncharted territories, to say the least. Did you meet your quota yet this month? It was announced yesterday by the Trump administration that they're going to pressure U.S. immigration judges to process cases faster by establishing a quota system tied to their annual performance reviews. So that's kind of like when a cop pulls you over for going exactly 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. It's the end of the month. It's like when a meter maid is sitting at your meter before the clock ticks, but the ticket's already written, so when it goes click, it just slips it under the windshield. It's like, sorry, Charlie, it's the end of the month and I gotta meet my quota. Don't you feel bad for those cops and those meter maids? Sure. You're like, give me the ticket. Not a big deal. The judges are going to be expected to clear at least 700 cases a year in order to receive a satisfactory performance rating. Yikes, that's a big number, 700. That means they have to finish more than one case a day, a lot, like at least. Anyways, Attorney General Jeff Sessions has promised to stifle immigration enforcement partly by moving more aggressively to clear a backlog of more than 600,000 pending cases before the executive immigration review. The system sets up additional benchmarks, penalizing those who refer more than 15% of their cases to higher courts, or a judge who schedules a hearing date too far apart on their calendars. The quota system proposed could raise questions about judicial independence and the possibility of judges basing rulings on factors other than the law and facts that are specific in front of these cases. The judges might be using self-interest, trying to get their quota and not necessarily enforce the law. How can you have a judge with a quota?